Arya Stark's prayer, a dark death list of her sworn enemies. Through grief and suffering her heart has hardened, vengeance shall be hers. We first hear the prayer in A Clash of Kings. Sir Gregor, Dunsen, Polliver, Chiswyck, Raff the Sweetling, the Tickler and the Hound, Sir Amory, Sir Ilyn, Sir Meryn, King Joffrey, Queen Cersei. Over time, names are added and names are removed. Even when Arya finds herself in Braavos, trained by the Faceless Men to become apathetic to death, she continues to chant her vengeful hymn. Let's explore the fate of every single person in the prayer, in chronological order of their death. The first to die is Chiswyck, a sadistic old man serving Sir Gregor Clegane, one of the infamous members of the Mountain's Men. When they capture Arya Stark and her friends, Gendry and Hot Pie, Chiswyck's jovial nature tricks Arya, who asks him for extra bread. He responds by smacking her in the face. When the prayer is first formulated, Arya specifically adds Chiswyck for thinking he's funny, despite being a monster who aids the Tickler in torturing their captives. When they reach Harrenhal, she overhears Chiswyck joyfully recounting the time that the Mountain's Men forced themselves onto an innkeeper's 13-year-old daughter. It's all Arya needs to find Jaqen H'ghar, who has promised to take 3 lives for her, and whisper a single name into his ear: Chiswyck. 3 days later, he mysteriously falls to his death. Arya adds a new name to her list shortly after arriving at Harrenhal: Weese, the thuggish understeward of the Wailing Tower. Arya is sent to work for him by the Mountain's Men, and he proves to be an abusive boss, hitting her at the slightest provocation. He also proves to be the second name Arya gives to Jaqen, and one day his spotted dog goes feral and tears his neck open. Later, in the House of Black and White, Arya learns of a paste spiced with basilisk blood that induces madness in any who consume it. This explains how Weese met his end. Arya personally witnesses the death of the next man. Sir Amory Lorch is a cruel Lannister bannerman ordered by Tywin to forage and burn the Riverlands. When he was younger, he allegedly threw the last Lord Tarbeck, a child, down a well, and during the sack of King's Landing, it was he who brutally murdered the young Prince Rhaenys Targaryen. But it was not these killings that earned Arya's ire, of course. He orders his raiding party to attack Euron's cluster of Night's Watch recruits, and when Arya later finds Euron's corpse, she adds Amory's name to the prayer. He later arrives at Harrenhal, and is named its Castellan when Tywin Lannister marches off. After Roose Bolton and the Bloody Mummers seize the castle for themselves, Amory is stripped naked and kicked into the bear pit to meet his grisly fate. He is thus removed from the prayer. The next death is delivered by poison. Arya already hated the spoiled Prince Joffrey Baratheon for bullying Mycah the Butcher's Boy, but after he ordered the execution of her father Ned Stark, his placement in her prayer became inevitable. Arya never sees Joffrey again, but hears from Polliver that the young king was poisoned at his wedding feast by Tyrion Lannister and her sister Sansa. Unbeknownst to her, the real culprits are Olenna Tyrell and Peter Baelish, probably. The next man to die is Polliver, another man-at-arms serving Sir Gregor Clegane. In the company of Chiswyck, the Tickler and Raff the Sweetling, Polliver proves to be one of the less sadistic of the Mountain's Men. Nonetheless, when they capture Arya, he steals Needle from her and earns himself a place in the prayer. He later rides out of Harrenhal as part of Sir Gregor's vanguard, bearing the Clegane standard and wearing Gendry's bull helmet. He presumably later fights at the Battle of the Fords, surviving the retreat from Edmure Tully's counterattack. After the Mountain's Men retake Harrenhal and Polliver is named its Castellan, he decides to go whoring at the Inn of the Crossroads, only to find the outlaw Sandor Clegane and a mysterious peasant boy by his side. A fight breaks out, and the Hound's sword cuts itself into Polliver's exposed head. Thus another name is ticked off the list. The next to die is another Clegane man-at-arms, known only as the Tickler. As the Mountain's Men march captured commoners to Harrenhal, the Tickler tortures men and women at random in ways that are not described. He eventually leaves Harrenhal as part of the Mountain's vanguard, returning only to seize the castle back from Vargo Hoat. He joins Polliver at the Inn of the Crossroads, only to cross swords with the Hound. With the Tickler distracted, Arya sneaks up behind him and stabs him to death, over and over and over. Sandor Clegane is the next casualty on Arya's list. Joffrey's hulking bodyguard, also known as the Hound, earns Arya's enmity after cutting down Mycah the Butcher's Boy on the orders of the Lannisters. Though he rises to become a member of Joffrey's Kingsguard, he later flees King's Landing during the fiery trauma of the Battle of the Blackwater. In the Riverlands, the new outlaw is captured by the Brotherhood without banners, and once more crosses paths with Arya Stark. The Brotherhood place him on trial, where he's accused of murdering Mycah, thanks to Arya's testimony. The Hound defeats Beric Dondarrion in trial by combat and is allowed to leave, but later sneaks back and kidnaps the Stark girl. He does not mean to harm her, but to ransom her to Robb Stark for a big sack of gold. The Red Wedding foils his plans, so he turns to the Eyrie to sell her to Lysa Arryn, but the High Road is closed, so he once more turns around and heads to Riverrun to sell her to the Blackfish. Along the way, he fights Polliver and the Tickler at the Crossroads Inn, sustaining wounds to his thigh, ribs and neck. They become infected, and he begs Arya to give him the gift of mercy. At this point, she's already taken him off her list, so leaves him to die under a tree. The elder brother on the Quiet Isle later tells Brienne that the Hound is dead and buried. The Hound, but not necessarily Sandor Clegane. A tall, shuffling gravedigger lives at the monastery, hiding his face under a scarf, living a life of quiet and peace. His older brother Sir Gregor Clegane is also in Arya's prayer. Tywin Lannister's bannerman is a brutal giant of a man, the person responsible for murdering Prince Aegon Targaryen and Princess Elia Martell. Gregor is the leader of the Mountain's men and commander of their atrocities. At one point, Arya watches him behead a peasant girl for fighting back against her rapists. The last time Arya sees him, he's leading Tywin's vanguard out of Harrenhal, off to fight in numerous battles and ambushes. He does eventually return to reclaim the castle, gradually dismembering Vargo Hoat, before riding off to King's Landing to fight on behalf of the Crown in Tyrion's trial by combat. The Mountain faces off against the Viper, Prince Oberyn Martell, who manages to wound the giant with his poisoned spear. Gregor has the last laugh and crushes the Viper's skull. Or perhaps Oberyn has the last laugh. Poison ravages his body despite the Grand Maester's efforts, so Qyburn takes care of him instead, in the bowels of the Red Keep, where he dies in agony. Allegedly. On a completely unrelated note, a hulking, faceless knight named Sir Robert Strong joins the Kingsguard. He does not eat, drink, sleep, or even talk. If there's a chance that Sandor is secretly alive, then there's a chance that Gregor is secretly undead. Arya is not aware of the Mountain's fate, so still says his name in her prayer. The final man in Arya's list to have met a grisly fate is Rafford, nicknamed Raff the Sweetling for his soft-spoken nature. He's one of the crueler men-at-arms serving the Mountain, stabbing Lomi through the throat for being unable to join their march. For this callous killing, Arya adds him to the prayer. He hits her when she asks for bread, kills a screaming peasant mother during the march, and murders an innkeeper's son when the lad tries to save his sister from the Mountain's men. He later joins Tywin's vanguard with the rest of his companions, and returns to take it back from Vargo Hoat. Raff and other Clegane men-at-arms join Jaime Lannister for the siege of Riverrun. Once the castle falls, Sir Jaime orders him to escort Sir Robin Ryger and Sir Desmond Grell to Maidenpool, from which the two prisoners will sail to the Wall. When the Golden Company land in the Stormlands, Sir Ronnet Connington and the leaderless Mountain's men journey from Maidenpool to King's Landing. Sir Kevan Lannister tells Sir Harys Swift to hire the brutal men to bolster his household guard, and Raff must have been chosen because he later accompanies his new boss to Braavos and right into Arya Stark's hands. Sir Harys and his hired courtesan, the Black Pearl, attend a performance of the Bloody Hand at the Gate Playhouse. Raff stands guard outside the private box, where he's seduced by a mysterious bald girl who whisks him away to her bedroom. She cuts his upper thigh, repeats the same mocking words Raff once told Lomi Greenhands, and stabs the murderer in the throat. She plans to dump him into a Bravosi canal to be consumed by the eels. This leaves 4 characters in the prayer who still live and breathe. Arya hates Queen Cersei Lannister, blaming her for the death of Sansa's direwolf, for the massacre of the Stark Guard in King's Landing, and for the execution of Ned Stark, although Cersei was actually opposed to that last one. As of the last book, Cersei has been forced through a walk of shame, and is awaiting trial following accusations of regicide. Her fate is probably tied to Jaime Lannister, whether he kills her like he did the Mad King, or hugs her while bricks fall on their head. It's possible that Arya might kill Cersei disguised as Jaime, giving her a satisfying kill while technically fulfilling the Valonqar prophecy, but in my opinion that's pretty unlikely. Next on the list is Sir Ilyn Payne, the mute man who personally executed her father. He spends most of the books in King's Landing serving as the King's Justice, until Sir Jaime commands him to join his Riverlands expedition. He trains with the One-Handed Knight, beheads a rapist on his orders, and silently listens to his incestuous confessions. As of the latest book, the headsman is in the Riverlands. As the King's Justice, he'll probably be returning to the capital, so I think it's unlikely that Arya will kill him personally. The penultimate name in the prayer is Sir Meryn Trant, the casually cruel Kingsguard knight who's sent by Queen Cersei to arrest Arya Stark. Her dancing instructor, Syrio Forel, sacrifices himself so that she can flee. For killing her mentor, Arya adds Meryn to the list. He continues to serve King Joffrey and then King Tommen in the capital. As with Cersei and Sir Ilyn, I doubt Arya will be interacting with this White Cloak again. Which takes us to the final man in Arya's prayer, Dunsen, another one of the Mountain's men, and perhaps Arya's most petty name so far. We know nothing about him or his personality. He doesn't even say a single line of dialogue. All we know is that he takes Gendry's bull helmet for himself, although it's later worn by Polliver, so we don't even know if Dunsen still owns it. Like his companions, he presumably fights in the Battle of the Fords, retakes Harrenhal, and either joins Raff the Sweetling in escorting Desmond and Robin to Maidenpool, or joins Sir Ronnet Connington in escorting Sir Willis Manderley to Maidenpool. Either way, he probably travelled to Maidenpool, and then travelled with Ronnet to King's Landing. There are a few possible fates for Dunsen. He may have been hired by Sir Harys Swift to accompany him to Braavos, like Raff. He may be sent to the Wall, which is what Randyll Tarly wants to do with the Mountain's Men, or he may be sent to fight against the Golden Company's invasion. Even if Arya were to meet him again, would she recognise him? Would she still be driven to kill him for something as petty as stealing a helmet? Either Arya Stark will break out of the toxic cycle of violence and vengeance, or it will consume her. How many more names must be removed from the list? How many more names must be added? For now, at least, Arya continues to whisper her prayer. If you enjoyed this rundown, like and subscribe to support the channel, check out the Patreon for exclusive stuff, and grab yourself a Fantasy Haven cap for the summer over at the merch store, or a Kraken Mecha t-shirt. Get hype. Feel free to check out my Battle of Blood theory video over here. Special thanks to all my patrons, in particular Andre, Caden, Colshot, Devcole, Itchaboi, Elias, and Morphy. See you next time.